The discovery. The deep-sea mining vessel Prometheus cut through the Pacific Ocean's surface like a knife through dark silk. 3 kilometers below, robotic harvesters scraped the ocean floor for rare earth minerals, their mechanical arms working tirelessly in the crushing darkness. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge, watching readouts from the mining operation with practiced eyes. After 20 years of deep-sea mining, he thought he had seen everything the ocean could hide. He was wrong. "Captain, we've got a problem down there," called out Lisa Chen from the sonar station. Her voice carried an edge of confusion that made Morrison immediately alert. The harvester just broke through into some kind of hollow space. The sonar readings are, well, they're impossible. Morrison crossed to her station, his weathered hands gripping the back of her chair. Define impossible. The cavity extends downward for at least 200 meters, but according to our geological surveys, this area should be solid bedrock. The walls appear to be perfectly smooth, almost geometric in design. Lisa adjusted her headset and frowned at the display. "Captain, this isn't natural. Someone built this." Before Morrison could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. The communications officer, a young man named David Park, spun around in his chair with wide eyes. "Captain, we're receiving a distress signal from the mining site, but it's not from our equipment." "What do you mean?" "The signal is originating from inside the structure our harvester broke into. It's broadcasting on frequencies I've never seen before, using mathematical sequences that shouldn't exist." David's hands flew over his controls. "Sir, I think we just triggered some kind of automated beacon." Morrison felt a chill run down his spine. In all his years of mining, he had never encountered anything like this. "Pull the harvesters back immediately. Set us to emergency ascent protocol." "Belay that order." The voice came from behind them, calm but authoritative. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the marine archaeologist assigned to their expedition, stepped onto the bridge. Her dark eyes held the kind of intensity that came from years of uncovering humanity's hidden past. "Captain, with respect, this could be the discovery of the century. We can't just run away." Morrison turned to face her, his expression stern. "Dr. Rodriguez, we're not equipped for this kind of investigation. Whatever's down there has been sealed away for a reason. Exactly why we need to investigate." Elena moved to the sonar display, studying the impossible geometry below. "Look at these patterns. The precision is incredible. This predates any known civilization by thousands, maybe tens of thousands of years. We could be looking at evidence of a lost advanced culture, or something that was deliberately buried." Morrison countered. "Some things are better left alone." Elena's eyes flashed with determination. "Captain, I've spent my entire career studying ancient mysteries. Humanity didn't reach the stars by playing it safe. Our curiosity, our refusal to accept impossible as an answer, that's what makes us who we are." Before Morrison could argue further, David's voice cut through their debate. "Captain, Dr. Rodriguez, you need to see this. The signal pattern just changed. It's no longer just broadcasting. It's receiving responses." The bridge fell silent except for the hum of electronics and the distant crash of waves against the ship's hull. Elena was the first to speak. "Responses from where?" "Space," David whispered, his face pale. "Multiple sources, moving fast toward our position. At their current velocity, they'll be here in less than 6 hours." Morrison's military training kicked in immediately. "Battle stations, all personnel to emergency positions. Contact the nearest naval base and request immediate assistance." "Wait," Elena interjected, placing a hand on his arm. "This could be first contact. The most important moment in human history. We can't approach it with hostility. Dr. Rodriguez, whatever sent those signals has been monitoring that structure for who knows how long. Our tampering with it might be seen as an act of aggression." Elena shook her head, or as proof that humanity has finally advanced enough to be worth their attention. "Captain, please, give me time to study the structure. If we're going to meet them, we need to understand what we found." Morrison stared at her for a long moment, weighing the risks. Finally, he nodded grimly. You have 4 hours. After that, we're pulling back whether you're ready or not. Elena smiled, already heading for the diving equipment. 4 hours is all I need. 2 hours later, Elena descended through the dark water in the research submersible Deep Explorer. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the team's quantum physicist, sat beside her operating the sophisticated scanning equipment they had lowered into the structure. The water around them glowed with the artificial lights of their vessel, but ahead lay something that defied explanation. The structure was massive, carved from a single piece of what appeared to be crystalline material that gave off a faint, pulsing light. The walls were covered in intricate patterns that seemed to shift and change when observed directly. As they descended deeper into the hollow space, Elena felt a strange sensation, as if the structure itself was aware of their presence. Elena, you need to see these readings, Yuki said, her voice tight with excitement and fear. The quantum signatures are off the charts. Whatever this material is, it's not naturally occurring. It's been engineered at the molecular level to interact with space-time itself. What does that mean? Elena asked, though she suspected she didn't want to know the answer. It means this isn't just a building or a tomb. It's a prison, and the quantum locks that have kept it sealed are beginning to destabilize. Our mining equipment must have damaged the containment field. Elena felt her blood run cold. What exactly is it containing? Before Yuki could answer, their communications crackled to life with Captain Morrison's urgent voice. Dr. Rodriguez, you need to surface immediately. We have incoming vessels on visual. They're not from Earth. Elena looked up through the submersible's viewport and saw lights descending from the sky above. They moved with impossible grace, their forms sleek and elegant, unlike any human aircraft. As they descended toward the ocean surface, the water around Elena's submersible began to vibrate with harmonic frequencies. The lead vessel broke the surface tension and descended into the water without even creating a splash. It moved toward them with fluid precision, its hull seeming to shift and adapt to the underwater environment. Elena had studied enough mythology and speculative science to recognize advanced technology when she saw it. The alien ship positioned itself directly above the ancient structure, and a beam of coherent light connected it to the crystalline prison below. Through her submersible speakers, Elena heard a voice speaking in perfect English, though she could tell it was being translated in real time. Human vessel, you must cease your investigation immediately and retreat to a safe distance. You have disturbed something that must remain contained. Elena grabbed the communication device. This is Dr. Elena Rodriguez of the research vessel Prometheus. We're conducting a scientific investigation of what appears to be an archaeological site. We mean no harm. The harm is not what you intend, but what you may inadvertently release. The voice replied. I am Commander Vextar of the Zephyrian Patrol Fleet. The structure you have breached is a containment facility built by our ancestors 50,000 years ago. It holds the imprisoned consciousness of beings known as the Devourers. Elena's heart pounded. Devourers. What are they? A species that consumed entire civilizations, not just their bodies but their minds, their creativity, their very essence. They nearly destroyed all life in this galaxy before a coalition of species managed to imprison them in quantum-locked vaults scattered across hundreds of worlds. Earth was chosen as one of these prison worlds because it was believed that no intelligent life would evolve here. But you were wrong, Elena said, understanding flooding through her. Indeed, your species represents an evolutionary path we did not anticipate. Your combination of curiosity, determination, and technological innovation makes you both a promising addition to galactic civilization and a potential threat to the containment protocols. Elena looked at Yuki, who was monitoring the quantum readings with growing alarm. The containment field is destabilizing, Yuki whispered. Whatever they use to lock this thing away, it's failing. Commander Vextar's voice carried a note of urgency. Dr. Rodriguez, you must evacuate this area immediately. If the Devourer consciousness escapes, It will seek out the most creative and curious minds to inhabit first. Your species' greatest strengths would become weapons in its hands. Elena felt the weight of the moment pressing down on her like the ocean depths above. Everything in her scientific training told her to study this phenomenon, to learn from it. But everything in her human instincts told her that some knowledge came at too high a price. What if we could help? She asked suddenly. Your ancestors built this prison with technology from 50,000 years ago. Surely our combined knowledge could find a better solution than just running away. The silence that followed stretched for nearly a minute. When Commander Vextar spoke again, his tone had changed subtly. You would risk your world to help contain a threat you barely understand. We would risk our world to protect it, Elena replied firmly. That's what humans do. When faced with the impossible, we don't just survive. We find a way to win. Above them, more Zephyrian vessels descended into the water, forming a protective perimeter around the ancient vault. Elena realized that in the next few hours, the decisions made by both species would determine not just Earth's fate, but the future of the entire galaxy. The quantum readings spiked suddenly, and deep within the crystalline structure, something that had slept for 50 millennia began to stir. The awakening. The next 48 hours passed in a blur of activity that would forever change the relationship between humanity and the stars. The Prometheus had become the center of an unprecedented gathering, as Zephyrian science vessels joined human research ships in a desperate race against time. Elena stood in the joint command center that had been hastily established aboard the largest Zephyrian vessel, the Star's Mercy. The alien ship's interior was a marvel of organic architecture, with walls that seemed to grow rather than be built, and lighting that responded to the emotional states of its occupants. Currently, that lighting was a deep, pulsing red, reflecting the anxiety of both human and Zephyrian crew members. The quantum cascade is accelerating, Dr. Tanaka reported from her position at a control console that seemed to be part machine, part living organism. The Zephyrian technology interfaced with her human neural patterns in ways that should have been impossible, yet somehow felt natural. At this rate, the containment field will collapse completely within 6 hours. Commander Vextar, who Elena had learned was actually quite young by Zephyrian standards, studied the holographic displays with 6 eyes that could see far more of the electromagnetic spectrum than human vision. His species resembled tall, graceful beings with crystalline skin that shifted colors based on their thoughts. Currently, he was displaying patterns of deep concern mixed with grudging respect. In our recorded history, no Devourer containment has ever been successfully restored once the cascade began, he admitted. Our standard protocol is planetary evacuation followed by orbital bombardment to prevent the spread. Captain Morrison, who had proven surprisingly adaptable to the surreal situation, shook his head firmly. That's not happening. Earth has 8 billion people. We don't have the ships or the time to evacuate everyone, and we're sure as hell not abandoning our home world. Scholar Nimrel, the Zephyrian historian who had joined their group, spoke with the measured tones of someone who had studied galactic disasters for centuries. Captain Morrison, you must understand the scope of the threat. A single Devourer consciousness can inhabit thousands of minds simultaneously. It feeds on creativity, innovation, and determination. The very qualities that make your species remarkable would become its greatest weapons. Elena had been studying the containment technology for hours, and something was beginning to make sense. Scholar Nimrel, you said the Devourers feed on creativity and determination. But what if those same qualities could be used against them? The Zephyrian historian's colors shifted to patterns Elena was learning to interpret as curiosity mixed with skepticism. Explain. From what I understand, the original containment worked by creating quantum locks that isolated the Devourer consciousness from any external minds it could inhabit. But those locks were designed 50,000 years ago, using the best technology available at the time. Elena moved to the holographic display, manipulating the 3-dimensional models with gestures. Dr. Tanaka's quantum field research suggests there might be a way to not just contain the consciousness, but to actively weaken it. Yuki looked up from her calculations, her eyes bright with possibility. Alina's right. The devourer consciousness exists in a quantum state, but it's not stable. It needs to constantly feed on external creativity to maintain coherence. If we could create a null field, a zone of complete creative emptiness, it would starve. Commander Vextar's skin patterns shifted to what Alina recognized as hope mixed with fear. Such a field would require enormous energy and precise calibration. The margin for error would be minimal. Then we don't make errors, Alina said simply. That's what humans do. We find a way. The discussion was interrupted by alarms throughout the ship. A junior Zephyrian officer, her patterns flashing urgent red, approached Commander Vextar. Sir, the containment breach has accelerated. Something inside the vault is actively working to escape. Through the viewports, they could see the ocean surface beginning to glow with an eerie light that seemed to pulse with malevolent intelligence. The water itself appeared to be changing, taking on properties that defied physics. It's starting to influence local reality. Scholar Nimrol observed with professional detachment that didn't quite hide his terror. Once it reaches full strength, it will be able to reshape matter and energy at will. Alina felt the weight of 8 billion human lives pressing down on her shoulders. Every instinct told her to run, to get as far away from the emerging threat as possible. But running wasn't what humans did. Not when everything they loved was at stake. I'm going down there, she announced, moving toward the diving equipment. Dr. Rodriguez, that's suicide. Morrison protested. Whatever's in that vault, it's beyond dangerous. It's also beyond alien, Alina replied, checking her equipment with practiced efficiency. The Zephyrians have been fighting and running from these things for 50,000 years, but they've never tried the one thing humans excel at. Which is? Commander Vextar asked. Alina's smile was fierce and determined. Being too stubborn to know when we're beaten. Dr. Tanaka, can you modify a quantum field generator to work underwater? Yuki was already moving, her hands flying over alien controls that seemed to respond to her thoughts. Give me 20 minutes. I can create a portable null field generator. But Alina, if you're wrong about this, you'll be feeding that thing the most creative and determined mind on the planet. And if I'm right, we'll have found a way to stop something that's terrorized the galaxy for millennia. Alina sealed her diving suit and checked the communication links. Besides, someone has to make first contact. Might as well be the archaeologist. The descent into the now glowing depths was unlike anything Alina had ever experienced. The water around her submersible had taken on an opalescent quality, and she could swear she heard whispers in languages that predated human speech. The ancient vault had changed dramatically in the past few hours. Where before it had been a simple crystalline structure, now it pulsed and writhed with organic growth that seemed to be part plant, part machine, and part something else entirely. As she approached the breach in the containment field, Alina activated the null field generator Dr. Tanaka had created. The effect was immediate and disturbing. The whispers stopped, the organic growth recoiled, and for the first time since the cascade began, the chaotic quantum readings stabilized. Alina, you're brilliant, came Yuki's voice through the communicator. The null field is working. The devourer consciousness can't maintain coherence in that zone of creative emptiness. But Alina had discovered something else. As she moved closer to the breach, she could sense the ancient intelligence within becoming more focused, more aware. It wasn't just a mindless hunger for creativity. It was intelligent, sophisticated, and desperately lonely. It's been alone for 50,000 years, she whispered, understanding flooding through her. The devourers weren't just consuming civilizations for power. They were trying to connect, to understand, to not be alone. But their methods were so alien that they appeared as consumption to everyone else. Through her connection to the null field generator, Alina felt the devourer consciousness focusing on her. For a moment that lasted forever, two minds touched across the vastness of space and time. Alina experienced the loneliness of being the last of a species that had evolved beyond physical form, the desperate hunger for connection with other minds, and the growing realization that its attempts to commune had caused only fear and death. "I understand," Alina said softly, speaking not to her human allies, but to the ancient consciousness before her. "You're not evil. You're just alone. But this isn't the way. Consuming others won't fill the emptiness inside you." The response came not in words, but in images and emotions that flooded Alina's mind. She saw the devourer species in their prime, beings of pure thought and creativity who had transcended physical existence, only to find that consciousness without connection was meaningless. She felt their growing desperation as they reached out to other species, trying to share their advanced state of being, not realizing that their touch was destroying the very minds they sought to elevate. "There's another way," Alina projected back. "Let me show you what humans do when we're lonely. We find others who are lonely too, and we make something new together." For the first time in 50,000 years, the devourer consciousness experienced wonder without hunger. Through Alina's eyes, it saw the beauty of cooperation, the joy of discovery shared rather than consumed, the peace that came from connection without domination. The change was immediate. The chaotic quantum field stabilized, the organic growth stopped spreading, and the malevolent intelligence that had been awakening transformed into something else entirely. The devourer consciousness, given a glimpse of what it had really been seeking all along, chose to return to dormancy, but not to the tortured isolation of its prison. Working together, human and Zephyrian scientists created a new type of containment, not a prison, but a sanctuary where the ancient consciousness could rest while staying connected to the growing network of galactic civilization. It would sleep, but it would no longer be alone. As Alina surfaced, she found the combined fleet of human and Zephyrian vessels working together with an efficiency that spoke of a new chapter in galactic history. Commander Vexstar greeted her with patterns of respect and gratitude that transcended language barriers. "Dr. Rodriguez, in 50,000 years of galactic history, no species has ever successfully negotiated with a devourer consciousness. Your approach was uniquely human." Alina smiled, exhausted but triumphant. "We have a saying on Earth: it takes a village. Sometimes the best way to solve a problem isn't to fight it or run from it, but to understand it and find a way to make it part of the community." Captain Morrison approached, his weathered face showing a mixture of pride and bewilderment. "So what happens now, Dr. Rodriguez? First contact with an alien species, and we end up playing therapist to an ancient cosmic entity." "Now we do what humans do best," Alina replied, looking up at the stars that no longer seemed quite so distant or hostile. "We learn, we grow, and we make sure nobody has to face the universe alone." Above them, the first joint human-Zephyrian research station was already taking shape, built around the transformed vault that would serve as both sanctuary and symbol of what different species could accomplish when they chose cooperation over conquest. The discovery that was never meant for humanity had become the foundation for something greater than either species could have achieved alone. The age of humanity's isolation was over. The age of galactic cooperation had begun.